Hello. In this first video I want to talk a little bit about microphones, how some are directional and others aren't, and how we can use this to our advantage as movie makers, particularly when we aren't able to get up close with a microphone. How a microphone responds to sound in any given direction is called its pickup pattern, and this pickup pattern varies depending on the way the microphone has been designed and what its intended use is. As far as we are concerned, there are two main types of pickup pattern, omnidirectional and unidirectional. The omnidirectional microphone is easiest to understand because it picks up sound equally in all directions. It doesn't matter whether the microphone is pointing towards you or away from you, up or down, its sensitivity to sound is roughly the same. The term unidirectional microphone describes any microphone that is more sensitive to sounds coming from one direction, and this is usually the direction the microphone is pointing. The microphone is more sensitive to sound from the front because it is designed to reject sound from the sides and rear, and therefore it appears to us to be more directional. Different types of unidirectional microphones include the cardioid, super and hypercardioid, and shotgun microphones, terms which I'm sure most of you will have heard of. When you buy a decent microphone, you usually get some printed information with it, including a pretty circular diagram, and this is known as a polar pattern. A polar pattern is simply a visual representation of how directional the microphone is. Imagine the microphone is positioned in the center of the polar pattern like this. The thick black line circling the microphone represents how loudly any sound will be picked up at any given angle away from the direction the microphone is pointing. It might be helpful to imagine that the further away the line is from the microphone, the further away the microphone will pick up sound. The polar pattern on screen is one for an omnidirectional microphone, and it can be plainly seen that the microphone will pick up sounds with equal volume no matter what direction that sound is away from the microphone. Now let's look at a typical polar pattern for another common type of microphone, the cardioid. The black line is the same distance away from the front of the microphone as it was for the omnidirectional type. However, sounds that are located further around the sides are reproduced with lower volume, and sounds almost directly behind the microphone are very quiet indeed. Notice how the thick black line gets closer to the microphone as the angle from the front increases, and it is the most common type of microphone fitted to a camcorder. The problem amateur movie makers have with a cardioid microphone is that it's not actually very good at isolating sounds, so we often find ourselves in need of the next evolution of microphone directivity, the super and hypercardioid. The hypercardioid is slightly more directional than the supercardioid, but otherwise their performance is very similar. The supercardioid rejects sounds to the side of the microphone to a greater degree than the standard cardioid, and this makes the microphone sound even more directional. However, if you see a strange bulge, called a lobe, behind the microphone on a polar pattern, this tells us that the microphone will pick up a small amount of sound directly behind it. There is very little that can be done about this anomaly. It is simply down to the way the microphone has been designed. It's true we have a more directional microphone, but at the expense of picking up a modicum of sound from behind it. It's a trade-off, but don't let that put you off trying or buying one, because super and hypercardioids are very effective indeed. But what if we wanted a microphone that is even more directional than either a super or hypercardioid? Then we need to turn to a line and gradient microphone, or in other words, a shotgun mic. These are highly directional microphones, but once again, there are trade-offs needed to get that performance. Here is the polar pattern for a typical shotgun microphone. We can see that the microphone is very sensitive to sounds in front of it. Its narrow angle of acceptance allows us to isolate very effectively the sound the microphone is pointed directly at. Notice again that strange lobe behind the microphone telling us that we need to be aware that this shotgun microphone can also pick up some sounds from directly behind it, and this is joined by two small lobes on either side as well. Once again, this is down to the way the microphone is constructed, and there is very little we can do about these lobes, but be aware of them when we use a microphone such as this. 9 times out of 10, the ability of the microphone to isolate the sound directly in front of it and to record it clearly and distinctly outweighs any small overspill of sound from the sides and rear. The thing is though, we can study polar patterns until the cows come home, but this should only be used as a guideline. For one thing, the pickup pattern on a microphone varies with frequency. The lower the frequency, the less directional a microphone becomes. Another important factor is that microphones are tested in a room known as an anechoic chamber. Inside this room, there are no ambient sounds and no reflections, so it becomes a perfect room. And here is the crux of the matter. We are never going to find ourselves in that situation when we go out to film our movies. Everything around us reflects sound to one degree or another, even the floor we are standing on. And as a result, sometimes what we record doesn't sound the way we expect it to. In this situation, the camcorder is placed around 8 feet away from where I'm sitting, and I'm simultaneously recording the audio using the camcorder's microphone and a shotgun microphone. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The camcorder audio sounds quite boxy because my voice is being bounced around the hard surfaces of the room. Here is exactly the same recording, but this time using the shotgun microphone. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. My voice sounds a lot clearer because not only does the microphone's directivity help to isolate it, but also because I was able to place the external microphone off the camera and on the floor just below camera shot. Okay, now I am repeating the test with background sound, specifically a piano played at quite high volume. Because the camcorder's microphone isn't very effective at isolating my voice, it comes across as competing against the background music. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Here is the same recording, but using the shotgun microphone. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. My voice sounds far clearer and the background music appears substantially quieter because the microphone is able to isolate my voice. Okay, we've looked at using microphones indoors, but what about outside? About 20 feet from the left of the picture and on the other side of a screen of trees is the A1 dual carriageway, and it's midweek, so the noise level is high. It's going to be interesting to compare the camcorder's built-in microphone against the external microphone under the same conditions. But first, I need to borrow my camcorder. Okay, let's start with the camcorder microphone recording. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The camcorder microphone struggles to isolate my voice, which competes against the noise from the busy dual carriageway. And at a distance of 20 feet, my voice becomes totally overshadowed by the traffic. Now let's replay the footage, but this time we'll listen to the sound captured by the shotgun microphone. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. At a distance of 20 feet, my voice is still legible, although it has become much harder to isolate. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Now let's try somewhere quieter. Here I am repeating exactly the same test in a much quieter location, so let's listen to the camcorder's microphone first. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. The camcorder microphone captured my voice more effectively than the previous location because there are no loud sounds competing with it. Standing further away, however, my voice becomes too faint to use because the camcorder's microphone is not directional enough. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This time we'll listen to the sound captured by the shotgun microphone. Even standing further away, the microphone still manages to capture my voice clearly. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. This demonstrates that we can use the properties of a shotgun microphone if we need to isolate a particular sound amongst others for our movie project. Okay, let's try something a little more extreme. Here, on a very dull and windy day atop Great Orme, I attempted to record the sound of the cable car. Aside from the obvious need for a windshield, the camcorder's microphone picks up far too much unwanted sound from around it, including a passing car. The zoom out illustrates the distance between the camcorder and the cable car. Now we can listen to the sound recorded using a shotgun microphone from exactly the same position. A windshield and furry windsock provide protection from wind noise, and the highly directional nature of the microphone allows us to even hear the whirring of the cable running over the wheels. The sound of the cable car rolling over the tower is clear and distinct, a definite improvement. But there's no reason why we need to be restricted to far away sounds. Close-up sounds also benefit from a highly directional microphone because of the microphone's ability to isolate sounds in front of it. Here is a close-up shot of a bee inspecting a toadflax plant, recorded using the camcorder's built-in microphone. There is acceptable background sound, but very little coming from the subject in question. Now listen to the same clip using sound from a shotgun microphone recorded at exactly the same time. The background sound is still present, but because the microphone is more sensitive to sounds in front of it, the sound of the bee is captured in greater detail. Hopefully, the clips I've shown in this video will give you an insight into how we can use a directional microphone to isolate the sounds we want to keep and reject the sounds we don't. A lavalier microphone can of course be used in some of the situations I've talked about, and I shall cover their use in a later video about commentary recording. Lavalier microphones are not perfect in every situation, but if you can attach one close enough to the sound you want to record, then even an omnidirectional lavalier can work well. I'm not sure, however, that the bee would appreciate having a microphone attached to his fur, but you're more than welcome to try. Just remember to film it.